Plant growth and reproduction on chapter 11 starts on page 94, and it's a picture of a beautiful blooming apple tree and a purple page that says chapter 11, plant growth and reproduction. Notice down on the bottom of page 92 that we are still in Kingdom Plantae, and this will be the last chapter on plants before we get into animals. The first thing that we're going to do is look through our chapter and figure out what's in it before we start reading. So I want you to sit up in learner's position and follow along with your eyes, and if possible, follow along with your finger as well. Follow along with the words. Okay, at the top of page 94, in black letters, we have plant growth and reproduction. Up towards the top of page 94, in purple letters, we have asexual reproduction. Turn your book to page 96, please. And there in purple, towards the top of the page, it says sexual reproduction. Towards the bottom of page 96, in purple letters, it says the stamen. On page 97, towards the middle of the page, in purple letters, it says the pistil. At the bottom of page 97, in purple letters, it says pollination. Turn your book to page 98, please, and there's a full page of mitosis. It's a full purple page all about the stages of mitosis. That's a big deal. On page 98, these are not really numbered, but at 98 at the top of the page, in purple letters, it says fertilization. The middle of 98, in purple letters, it says seed dispersal. And at the bottom of page 98, in purple letters, it says germination, and that's it for the whole chapter. So now let's go back to page 94 and let's start reading this chapter. Okay, remember what to do. Plant growth and reproduction. Of all the life functions, reproduction is the only one an individual can live without. However, the species cannot survive if some of its individuals do not reproduce. There are basically two kinds of reproduction, asexual and sexual. Asexual reproduction in purple letters, page 94. Asexual reproduction involves only one parent. The offspring produced during asexual reproduction are genetically the same as that one parent. This means that the offspring will have all the same characteristics as the parent. As you will see, it is asexual reproduction that allows a farmer or a scientist to grow types of seedless plants. It also ensures that a certain trait will be passed on from the parent to the offspring. Some methods of asexual reproduction, such as grafting, allow hybrids to be made that do not occur in nature. Asexual reproduction produces plants more quickly than sexual reproduction. There are many types of asexual reproduction. Binary fission is the splitting in two of a cell. First, the cell makes a copy of the chromosomes in its nucleus, which contain the instructions to operate the cell. Then, the parent cell divides its cytoplasm and nuclear material equally into two daughter cells. We mentioned in the section on classification that binary fission is the way that many bacteria, algae, and protists reproduce. See chapter 7 if you cannot name the protist shown in figure 11.2 up at the top of that page, the 95. Do you know what that is? If you don't know what that is, then go see chapter 7. Let's keep reading at the bottom of page 94. Budding is similar to binary fission. Just as in binary fission, the cell makes a copy of the chromosomes in its nucleus. However, in budding, the cytoplasm is not equally divided. The parent cell is larger and the daughter cell is smaller. Both cells have the same genetic information in their chromosomes, as in every case of asexual reproduction. Yeast cells, like those sold in food stores, reproduce by budding. Top of page 95, please. Some of the less complex animals, such as Hydra, also reproduce asexually by budding. So just stop for a second, look up at the top of page 95, and there are 3 boxes, 3 pictures, and all of them are 3 different types of asexual reproduction. We've got binary fission, where the whole thing splits in 2, they're the same size. Then there's budding, and the daughter cell in that one is much smaller. And then in the third one, there's hydra, which is budding, and that's a different type of budding, okay? Let's keep reading. Fungi and some plants reproduce asexually by sporulation. Figure 11.5 on the right margin shows the fruiting bodies of mushrooms. The purpose of this part of a fungus is to produce spores that can produce new organisms in other locations. Each spore contains the same genetic information as the parent organism. So there we go. Sporulation is another type of asexual reproduction. Let's keep reading. There are many different methods of vegetative propagation. All of them are types of asexual reproduction in which part of a plant, like a vegetable, is used to grow a new plant, propagation. The stems of some plants, such as geraniums, can be cut and kept alive until they form roots. Then the cutting may be planted. In grafting, another type of vegetative propagation, the cut part is attached to another plant that is already growing. Grafting is the technique which allows farmers to grow seedless orange trees, a type of plant which otherwise would not be able to reproduce since it does not have seeds. Runners are special horizontal stems in strawberry and other plants that run along the surface and put down roots. If the runner is later cut, there will be 2 plants. Runners are a type of asexual reproduction by means of vegetative propagation. Plants like raspberries have stems that bend down to touch the ground. The stem takes root and can be cut. Turn to page 96. Can be cut to make 2 plants. This is called layering. Both plants will be genetically identical, just as in all the other types of asexual reproduction. 2 of the most familiar methods of asexual reproduction are bulbs and tubers. We talked about those in Chapter 10. As you learned in Chapter 10, an onion bulb and a potato tuber are both specialized plant stems. You are probably familiar with the inside of an onion. The part that you eat is actually a compressed stem and thick leaves. The eyes of a potato are actually new stems that can grow if given a chance. Bulbs and tubers yield plants genetically identical to the parent plant. So as you see, there's many types of asexual reproduction. We've got binary fission, regular budding, hydra budding, sporulation, vegetative propagation. Those are all types of asexual reproduction. And remember that all asexual reproduction involves only one parent, and they will have exactly the same characteristics as the parent. Now, let's turn our books to page 96, towards the top of the page in purple letters, and let's learn all about sexual reproduction. There is one very important difference between asexual and sexual reproduction. In sexual reproduction, the chromosomes in the nucleus of the new cell are a combination of genetic information from 2 parent cells. As you learned in Chapter 8, some fungi, called conjugation fungi, exchange nuclear material in a type of sexual reproduction. As a result, the new fungus is not exactly like either of the parent fungi. This often produces some individuals who are better able to live and survive under a given set of circumstances. The most important advantage of sexual reproduction is the variation in the offspring. So remember, asexual reproduction involves one parent. Sexual reproduction involves 2 parents. Sexual reproduction in the more complex plants occurs through fertilization by 2 gametes. The gametes are special cells formed just for reproduction. The male gamete is a sperm cell, and the female gamete is an egg cell. In angiosperms, the most advanced plants, The flower is a specialized organ for reproduction. Any flower that has the parts to make both sperm and egg cells is a complete flower. Some flowers, called incomplete, only produce sperm cells, while others make only egg cells. Most flowers have a swollen base called the receptacle. The sepals grow from the receptacle and protect the flower bud before it opens. All the sepals together are called the calyx. The brightest and most obvious part of many flowers are the petals. Showy petals are found on flowers that need insects to pollinate them. The corolla, all the petals together, form bright patterns that certain insects fly towards. The corolla is like a target that attracts pollinators. You know, that's funny if you think about it. Those beautiful flowers with the pretty corollas, those are intended to attract insects. But they also attract us, right? Because we collect the most beautiful flowers and turn them into bouquets. So we're a little bit like insects. Okay, at the bottom of page 96, let's learn about the stamen. In studying the flower figure in figure 11.9, note that the stamen is all of the parts needed to produce sperm cells. The filament is long and thin. Just what filament means. We're at the top of page 97 now. 97. The anther is the correct anther to give when asked where pollen is formed. That's a joke. Let's read it again. The anther is the correct anther to give when asked where the pollen is formed. The pollen produced by the anther contains the sperm cells. These parts make up Stanley stamen, the male part of the flower. Remember the word men in stamen to associate the stamen with the male parts. A staminate flower is an incomplete flower that contains only male parts, anther, filament, and pollen. Those are the three parts of the male stamen, anther, filament, pollen. Let's read about pistil on page 97 in purple letters towards the middle of the page. The central region of figure 11.9 illustrates all of the female parts of the flower, called the pistil. At the top is the sticky stigma, whose function is to grab hold of the pollen. The style is slender and connects the stamen to the ovary. Remember, it is always in style to be slender. The enlarged part at the base of the pistil is the ovary. This is the part of a flower that becomes the fruit. Inside the ovary is the ovule, which contains the egg cell. The ovule eventually becomes the seed. Patty pistil is the part of the female parts of a flower. A pistillate flower is an incomplete flower with only female parts: stigma, style, ovary, and the ovule containing the egg cell. So remember, the stamen is like Stanley stamen. That's all the male parts. And the pistil, like Patty pistil, is all of the female parts of the flower. Let's read about pollination on the bottom of page 97. For sexual reproduction to occur, the pollen in the anther must get to the sticky stigma on the style. The process of pollen getting from the anther to the stigma is called pollination. When pollen from a flower's anther reaches its own stigma, it is called self-pollination. Cross-pollination occurs when wind, water, insects, or human beings cause the pollen from one flower to reach the stigma of a different flower. Did you understand what that just said? That if a plant contains both male and female cells, it can pollinate itself. Okay? But if it only contains male or only contains female, then cross-pollination has to be involved. Let's turn to page 98, and that's that big purple page. However, let's save that for last. Let's go over to page 99 and read about fertilization up at the top in purple letters. It is only after pollination that fertilization can occur. Fertilization is the process of fusion between two gametes, the sperm cell and the egg cell. Fertilization is the most important part of sexual reproduction. At the moment of fertilization, a new combination of DNA, that's chromosomes, is produced. A new, unique organism is formed. In order for fertilization to occur in a flower, the pollen grain stuck on the sticky stigma grows a long tube which reaches down through the style. The sperm cells contained in the pollen travel within this tube into the ovule, which contain the plant's egg cells. When the sperm and egg nuclei join together, fertilization occurs and a new plant's life begins. The single cell formed by the fusion of the sperm and egg cells is called the zygote. Because half of the chemical instructions in the zygote come from the sperm cell and the other half comes from the egg cell, the zygote is an individual. Even though it may be in a white flower, this zygote could produce pink flowers when it matures because sexual reproduction has allowed genetic variation. The zygote will grow into an embryo or a tiny organism in an early stage of its development. The ovule develops into the cotyledons and seed coat. The ovary becomes the fruit. Let's read about seed dispersal in purple. The seeds inside the fruit of angiosperms and on the cones of gymnosperms are spread in several different ways. The shape of a seed is related to its method of seed dispersal. In figure 11.1, figure 11.1 illustrates the seed shapes and the agents of dispersal. So if you look over at A, on the right side of margin, there's A, B, C, and D, different types of seeds. Seeds with wings or parachutes. A, those helicopter types are spread by wind. And in the coconut, the coconut B is designed to float on water. Interesting. Some seeds, such as C, stick to animals. Those are like burrs, right? And D is used by animals for food and then are carried away and buried. Even gravity can help in seed dispersal by pulling fruits and nuts downhill. Okay, so the methods of seed dispersal are wind, water, sticking to animals, and being carried away by animals and buried. Okay, and even gravity can help too. Let's read about germination at the bottom of the page. Germination. The tiny new plant inside its seed is alive but not actively growing. When the water and temperature become just right, germination occurs. The seed swells, the seed coat splits open, and the embryo uses the food stored in the cotyledons to grow vigorously. If it's on a fertile spot, the embryo will take root and grow into a mature plant. Eventually, it will produce flowers, and the circle of life will begin again. So now the last part of the chapter is that purple page 98, about mitosis. Let's read about mitosis, okay? The purple page. Mitosis, the process of growth. Have you ever planted a garden and watched tiny seedlings grow into enormous pumpkins or sunflowers taller than yourself? Have you marveled at the tiny hands and feet of a newborn brother or sister? A brother or sister who might one day be taller than yourself? Let us praise God for the incredible process of growth. In plants and animals, growth occurs by means of cell division in a process called mitosis. Think how many more cells there are in a full-grown sunflower as compared to a sunflower seedling. The millions of new cells that are formed as the sunflower grows to its full size are produced through mitosis. When a strawberry plant reproduces by vegetative propagation, it is the process of mitosis which allows the parent plant to grow the runner and the new plant. Your own growth is also due to the mighty process of mitosis. Mitosis is the normal process by which plants and animals produce new cells. In mitosis, a single parent cell divides into two smaller cells, which are then called daughter cells. The daughter cells are identical with the original cell because they contain exactly the same chromosomes. Chromosomes, you remember, are double strands of DNA which contain the chemical instructions for operating the cell. Duplicating the chromosomes so that there will be only one set for each daughter cell is the most important part of mitosis. During mitosis, the organelles are also duplicated and divided between two new daughter cells. Up at the top of the second column, the process of mitosis occurs in 5 stages called interphase, prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. They're phases, huh? The diagram below will help describe or explain the stages of mitosis. To remember the stages of mitosis, use the mnemonic IPMAT. I-P-M-A-T, IPMAT. I. The interphase. Interphase contains the word inter. Inter means between, and the interphase is when the cell is between divisions. During the interphase, the cell is working on growing larger, but not dividing. At the end of the interphase, the cell produces a duplicate of each of its chromosomes. P in the IPMAT. P for prophase. Prophase contains the prefix pro. Pro often means first. What must happen first if a cell is to divide? First, the chromosomes must organize themselves into pairs, and the nuclear membrane must dissolve. Metaphase begins with M for middle. The chromosomes and their newly made copies line up in the middle of the cell. The A in IPMAT, anaphase. Anaphase begins with an A for apart. The chromosomes move apart to each side of the cell. And the T in IPMAT stands for telophase. Telophase begins with T for 2. The cell, which now has a complete set of chromosomes on each side, divides into 2. When mitosis is complete, there are 2 cells, each with a normal number of chromosomes. Thousands of cells undergo mitosis every day in the human body. That's it for Chapter 11. Bye-bye.